So I suppose we should start by introducing ourselves. Would you like to start or would you like me to start?
Go on.
Okay, so I'm Claire. This is Mr. Caps, if you can see Mr. Caps. So I am here as a widow. I lost my husband nearly a year ago. He died here at St Helena very peacefully, and he was diagnosed all of a sudden, completely out of the blue, with advanced pancreatic cancer.
So I'm Rachel. I'm also a widow. My partner Viv died about 6 months before Brad, so a little over a year ago, nearly a year and a half ago.
Nearly 2 months.
Also died at hospice and both of us were very well supported during that time.
Sitting there, it felt so surreal having this conversation about where do you want to die, Bradley, and where's your second choice, and just thinking things like, oh, we know we want him to die in the hospice, but we better think of somewhere else. It was like somebody split our mind in half, and there was one half saying never give up, and the other half saying we've really got to accept that this is it,
yeah.
Which we always knew was coming. And I remember saying to him on Brightlingsea Ward in the hospital, do you think you're dying? And he said yes. And I said, what's different now? And he said, because I think I can accept it now.
And she knew she wanted to die at the hospice, but she was also at that point not ready to die. This was probably a month before she actually died. But even then, we weren't explicitly saying, and you're going to die, or you're going in and you're not coming home again. But that last time in the hospice everything about it was different. She was still very engaged with people, but she was just in bed, not really moving, not really, she sort of lost a bit of fight, I think. And she would wake up and sort of ask me a question or something, and I don't know how many times I had to say to her, I think you might die soon. We had conversations about her funeral, and she had a much stronger faith than I really knew. It was
yes.
In fact, she'd left this kind of these instructions that she hadn't discussed with me, but she'd written them down. And it was a very sort of Christian funeral that she wanted.
We'd had a dry run 2 years earlier. I can remember at the end of that week getting in contact with a humanist celebrant. We wanted it at the village hall. We knew he wanted to be cremated in his ashes at the Woodland Burial Ground. So that was kind of all in my head.
In Viv's notes, she left sort of instructions for the funeral, but she'd written something in this book about like the music she wanted, and some of it. But she basically said, I want you to have a right good party, and then it's a bit of a bummer that I'm not going to be there. I think that's the thing. It's that you miss the person that sort of organised.
Well, this is the thing, because we had Bradley's funeral, as you know, at Bradfield Village Hall, and there was a disco light in the centre, and I remember thinking, oh my God, if only we could get that working, because he would have been guffawing wildly at the thought that there was a disco ball at his funeral. But nothing prepares you for the point at which it actually happens, and to this day I still can't believe he's died.
No. Simultaneously, utterly unbelievable and completely unquestionably the only thing that can happen. It's like it's real and it's unreal at the same time, really.
In a way, I recognise that people like you and I represent quite a frightening prospect. What do you say to someone who's been widowed in their 50s?
Well, I was frightened of what my life was going to feel like, and whether I'd be able to cope after she died. It was, it was a really scary prospect for a very long time.
I couldn't actually even begin to imagine what widowhood looked like. I couldn't get beyond the physicality of his death and how I was going to react to that.
There's a point when you're first kind of hit, when it just feels impossible and overwhelming and just kind of unbearable, really. As time goes on, we're quite sort of amazing creatures, and we adjust. You learn to live with the reality that your life does continue.
Like soldiers anticipate going into battle, and then they go into battle, and it happens. And it's like death and widowhood are the same thing. However much I'm not ready for this, it's going to happen. Death just happens. It's just normal. It just happens. and it's an ordinary part of life, and being widowed, I mean, being widowed it's awful. And I think certainly the first few months I was probably just in some sort of daze. November, December, January were dreadful, and I just was sinking and sinking and sinking.
That's the thing,
And
isn't it, about the support that you need to ask for or that finds you, is that it can just validate those feelings that, you know, I suddenly found I couldn't bear to part, for example, with anything that she'd written on. So like all these like shopping lists, and you know, I just had this like realization like that she's never going to write another note. There's now a finite number of things with her handwriting on in the world, and I can't be responsible for reducing that finite number. I mean, they're valueless in and of themselves, but I just like couldn't. And it's absolutely, completely a thing, I think. You know, and like the point at which you're ready to start letting go of things that are, you know, are part of them in whatever way, whether it's clothes or, you know, whatever. But yeah, you just sort of think, God, how weird is that?
The whole thing's weird. And here we are, we're squaring the circle, here we are sitting here.
Yeah.
Back here.